Hello everyone, I'm Salo Steinvortz, host producer of Drive Time Celebrate 2026. I'm also a student in the fully employed MBA program here at Anderson. It's a very special season for Drive Time because it's celebrating 10 years of bringing the student voices, faculty, alumni from the Anderson community to you. Shout out to Dylan, Mani, and everyone on the team for making this happen. It's also a very special season because we're celebrating our graduating class. Drive Time is a peer-nominated, peer-interviewed initiative, and that's why it's an honor and privilege to introduce you to our next guest, Dr. Ishan Asokan. Dr. Ishan Asokan is a hospitalist at Providence Health and a former assistant professor at UCLA Health, whose career spans HIV prevention, LGBTQ advocacy across India, East Africa, Thailand, and Jordan. At Anderson, he was one of the recipients of the John Wooden Leadership Fellowship, one of the school's most highest honors for students who embody hard work, ethics, and a drive to keep growing. At Anderson, he also participated in an exchange program going to Brazil, and then he went to an immersion program in Chile. And he was part of the audience-winning team for the Business Creation Capstone program with Homa medical grade soap brand. All of this is happening while he passed a journey forward biotech investing and healthcare leadership. And he's also an alumni at University of Pennsylvania, Vanderbilt, and Oxford, and soon to be an alumni at Anderson in about 2 months. If you talk to him, he'll tell you he's open to pivots, and Anderson is sure of that. Dr. Ishan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right, so let's do a real quick podcast breakdown of how this is going to unfold. We'll talk about who you were before Anderson, who are you now during Anderson, and who you aspire to be.
So before I started at Anderson, I was an academic hospitalist at UCLA. I had graduated from the internal medicine residency program at Reagan. My interests were largely in teaching and education-based initiatives. And I thought that I was going to be like a clinical professor and do just that. But it's so funny, 3 years go by. And by that third year, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is exactly what I envisioned for myself. It's really tough because you really are always trying to differentiate yourself. You would think you're done with residency, now it's just entering the workforce. First year is kind of fun, finally living like a real attending and things like that. But you feel a little unsettled. And I remember going to my mentor at the time, Dr. Naveen Alfara, and I was kind of like, I just don't really know what I can do to differentiate myself. And then she said, why don't you think about the MBA? We've had people, in our hospitalist group do it, and you don't really know what it could open up for you opportunity-wise. This for me was like a big gamble because this is my 4th degree. I had been very educated, and so you think you're done, and I was not done. And I remember when I first, I signed up for it, I was initially kind of excited, and then I was like, oh man, this is going to be a lot of work on top of a really busy schedule. And I actually worked predominantly nights. So living like a vampire and adding school on top of everything I didn't think it was going to be probably the healthiest decision. And now, fast forward 3 years, I'm like, wow, my life has really gone in an amazing direction because of it.
Wow. Oh, thank you. And so what made you get into healthcare and wanted to become a doctor?
I come from a family of a lot of doctors, and I think a lot of people culturally just assumed that was what was inspiring to me. But it was actually a lot of work that I had done abroad. So I graduated from Penn in 2010, and I was, the plan was always to do maybe medical school, but I didn't really have the real direct indicator as to why I wanted to be a patient advocate. And then this opportunity, I still remember so vividly. I wrote this UChicago professor, Dr. John Schneider, an email middle of the night being like, you are doing this really interesting HIV prevention work with male commercial sex workers and trans sex workers in Hyderabad, India. And that's originally one of the regions of India where my family's from. Ancestrally. And so I thought this was such a great way to do work at a public health level, connect with the community that really is underserved and often not recognized, And that really was like kind of the fire that like lit my career. It was there that I got to really work hard and learn a lot of interesting preventive health skills. And then that laid the foundation for me eventually going to Oxford for my master's in public health. And then for my thesis, I did a very similar project in Kenya. So I was able to bridge a lot of the regional work. And then I was lucky enough to get into Vanderbilt for med school. And then even in medical school, I felt like I wanted to try so many different things, and, some doors really shut on me and then some opened. And I found myself at UCLA for my residency. And, even there, it just, every time it's like a clock kind of resets. But ultimately it's like a challenge to like figure out how are you going to make the most of an opportunity. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to UCLA for my residency. I'm going to be good. I'm just going to be a doctor. And then you get here and you're like, wow, there are so many different ways to shape and pivot and create your career. And then I came here, and then I did the same thing when I got my MBA, which we can talk about later. But
yeah. Nice. And I want to talk a little bit about this person who you were before, Anderson. And in the introduction, talked about HIV prevention and LGBTQ advocacy across different countries in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How has that shaped you now as a person, and what learnings did you get?
I think one of the biggest challenges, like dealing with your identity is a really tough thing. And if you're a minority within a minority, which is how I felt, being South Asian and also gay at the same time, I think it was really difficult to find a place for yourself. So I took that challenge head on by doing work in India, because it was a way for me to culturally be with people that are like me. Obviously, our circumstances are wildly different. But, when you're in this position of leadership now, and I like see where my career has gone, I secured this like a Point Foundation scholarship for my work with that community, things like that. It's a way to really give back and a way to recognize when others are like you that are also trying to climb. And I think that that's what that work really was able to give me, was a lens into not only advocacy, but also when you're trying to find colleagues and mentors and people who relate to you. That's really challenging, So creating a space for that was really what a lot of that work was for.
And okay, so you decided to apply to Anderson. I guess why Anderson? Is it because you already had some sort of connection through UCLA Health? And why Anderson, and then why FEMBA?
Yeah. So why not add more degrees on top of degrees and add more school and money? No, I think for me it was medicine is a really interesting field in that you learn how to care for patients really well. You learn how to really apply science very quickly. You learn risk. You learn that sometimes things don't work out with the decisions you make. But you don't really learn how to work well with people necessarily. Like there's certain like subtle skills as you get more developed as a clinician that I think are, some people have it, some people don't. I am very willing to admit that I did not know a lot of these soft skills that you can really learn in business school. And now after being in the degree, I'm like, oh my gosh, having a boot camp in this would be so helpful, because not only are we dealing with life and death situations a lot of the time in the inpatient wards, but we're also dealing with like interdisciplinary dynamics and understanding how to navigate health systems and complex needs, getting someone to do a case for you, mobilizing, certain resources in a time efficient manner. And a large part of that is ultimately boils down to your like person to person interaction. And that's one of the gifts I think that has been really big with this experience, because I'm not only learning that in the coursework, but I'm learning that by working with people in so many different industries. One of my first learning groups, like not one of us was in a similar industry at all, but they would tell me the things that they would have, like the kind of feedback meetings and the like performance indicators that their advisors are looking at and things like that. And I'd be like, what? Like, these are words I don't even know, but they're so valuable and so fundamental to my field. And I think that's one thing that's super nice about the experience at Anderson is it's like such a compliment, because I'm sitting right next to the hospital where I trained at, but I'm also learning a like wealth of skills that I just didn't know we even had available to us.
Okay, so perfect, great segue to Anderson. You get accepted.
Yes.
It's the first day where we meet.
Yeah, where we met. Oh my gosh!
Allegedly.
Hopefully, I didn't have too many drinks or something, but yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah,
And it was hopefully a pleasant interaction.
It was.
Yeah, and that first day, I remember getting there, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like middle school again or something, and you have to like be like, hey, how are you?
Right.
Oh, what do you do? That's cool. And, half listening. I work nights, right? So I literally am like trying to just be awake. And then I meet like some really interesting people. And the thing that's really unique about that first week is we're all like actually at the same stage mentally.
Yeah.
You may have, reached a ceiling at the job that we were doing, or we're like, I think I want to change careers. I need like more formal training in how to do that. I was not independently motivated enough to just learn some of this stuff on my own. So give me a class and a book and tests and things, and I'll try to do my best, but that way I'm forced to learn it, right? So there's like all these different types of learners, all these different types of people looking for the same thing. And then by the end of that first Phil week, I was like, oh my God, I made all these cool new friends. They're really interesting. They are from totally different walks of life. And it's kind of nice to get a break from talking medicine all the time.
And there's a cool picture that you have of you during Phil walking with someone who's very special, and tell us why that person became special in your trajectory here at Anderson.
Yes, John and I became friends, John Muth, and he is also a FEMBA. And I remember we just kind of hit it off that first week.
Were you in the same class?
We were in the same class, but we never, I think we were in maybe the ropes course together or something. We were in something that involved like team building and bonding. And he was just such an inspiring guy. He had worked in like consumer packaged goods at Beyond, and like it was just like a totally different world, speaking a language I didn't even understand, but really like just genuinely kind and motivated and interested. And we became really good friends, like just as the program progressed, and then it evolved into being business partners when we decided to kind of do the capstone project together. And it was just this amazing, like, I'm your friend first, and then now business partner after, which I think has laid a really cool foundation, because who would have thought that you would go to business school? Sure, you might collaborate on a project with someone, but like to do that with a friend is really like, a unique experience. Like this is someone, I buy his coffee, things like that. Right. But we're now literally using it in our new product.
And can you tell us more about this new product that you use in the BCC?
Yeah. So I guess what I can talk about, which, for me, what was really the coolest thing about this experience is I came in, trying to engineer maybe a career in healthcare leadership, which I still would like to do. Or maybe go into biotech investing or something like that. Really harness the skills, like the hardcore skills that I'm trying to merge with the science background. But it was being asked to work on a project where we create this upcycled coffee-based bar that has a lot of like clinical benefits using John's coffee. And that was the foundation of our business creation capstone project. And again, like you're getting towards the end of the MBA, you don't really know what to do. There are different pathways to take. I remember we were really trying to piece together a BCC group, and then John asked me like, hey, would you like to be a part of this? And I was like, yeah, actually, that sounds really interesting. Not what I envisioned in terms of like how I was going to use my time. I thought I would work on something really kind of, clinical.
Niche,
but this was like, okay, I'm like sort of a creative person now and again, and I want to use a different part of my brain. And, the people who are in this group are super motivated. And so that's like Alejandro, Caitlin Cunningham, Caitlin Brown, and John. And so we had this opportunity. We get paired with Vicky Schiff is our BCC advisor. And, from just that first couple of weeks alone with Vicky, like that was like such an incredible experience, because she is such a powerhouse. I would say she's probably one of the best mentors I've ever had. And I've been really mentored in a lot of different environments. But she's someone who just like has done all the things. And I thought her way of advising us was so unique. I'd never really seen like that level of mentoring where it's like, we get the weekly check-in. There are deliverables. Yep. She is expecting things from us. It can be exhausting because I'm also working the whole time. But before you know it, we put together an idea of a soap product. We're making it in John's kitchen. And then, flash forward to this week, we have a prototype with a cosmetic pharmacist and we're going to go to market, and we pitched this product at the BCC capstone presentation. I had to do it. And they bought into it, And again, like one of the things that's scary about business is like you don't really know if this is going to work out. But what I love about what took us there is the story. Like, we're literally starting with coffee beans from Nayarit in Mexico that John has procured. He has made his coffee, and then we're upcycling these coffee grounds into something that hopefully will have some great dermatologic benefits.
In your trajectory, something that comes to mind are Detours, and we kind of talked about that. And it's just so fascinating to see how scrappy this idea came, and now you're working on it at John's house, and now you're going to market. So that's so fascinating. That things that could happen.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I went in with a very different intention. I was like, I want to go into administration, and I think I need this credential in order to get me there, or maybe I will start a private practice and I need some help making sure I do this right, or, learn how investing really works professionally, things like that. Things that, in the world of medicine, like we don't really get much exposure to unless we're really driven and interested. And then this opportunity presented itself and it seemed right. And I think it was kind of fun along the way. And then when I remember the day we actually had a bar and it felt real and like, we were using it and people liked how it smelled and things. I was like, oh, okay, this is actually happening, and that was like a really cool win for me. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm excited about it. And then we all kind of fed off of each other's excitement too. So I think John's independent success with his company and really his passion, like you really feel it, right? So then you have this immense guilt if you don't have passion too, So I think like that was for me like such a turning point. And I looking back on the BCC experience and having Vicky as an advisor and like the number of people she tried to connect us with, and even just like the fact that the network in LA is so impressive in these different industries, I think that alone was like, if you don't know what to do, maybe just take a gamble and do BCC, because you might find something completely unrelated to your like life, and it could be cool,
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And what about any classes or professors that stick to mind right now?
So I just did global immersion in Chile with Sebastian Edwards. And it was like such an incredible course because he is, well, one, you don't, I mean, I should have maybe known this, but he is like a celebrity in Chile. Okay. And so by virtue of that, every industry head in the country is his friend. And then they all came and spoke to us. And so it was like you're meeting people who are on the cover of Forbes that week, and you're meeting like leaders in copper and lithium. And then, we met like one of the directors of Explora, which is like this kind of eco-lux tourism company. And then I'm like going and doing the Explora journey at the end of it in the Atacama Desert. And like, all of it was such an incredible networking opportunity, but also a window into like the power of some of these professors here, and I really loved it because every day it was like, you're going to meet literally the head of like the entire like salmon fishing industry that they have, or, this is like a window into like how we're regulating AI in this country. Oh, she just happens to be like a really good friend of mine. And even like talking a lot about like the dark past of Chile and like what some of these people who are now in very high positions of leadership had to endure to get to their position, in such an intimate setting. Yeah. So I think that was one of the experiences where I went in with, I didn't really have many expectations. I was kind of like, honestly, I'm just kind of happy to not have to work overnight, And then I'm getting this incredible window into Chile as a country and potential opportunities in the future. And then finishing it up with this like spectacular journey and set of hikes and stuff in the Atacama Desert. So I don't know. I mean, nothing in med school was that exciting, So
And you have a picture
Yes.
of you. And want to tell us what's going on in the picture?
So this is, there's a special hike called Volcan Blanco, and it's very long, and it's at a pretty high altitude. I can't tell you exactly what altitude, but it was probably one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And like, by virtue of living in so many different countries, I've also gotten to see so many places. But there's something incredibly spectacular about being able to see desert, mountains, snow, hot springs, wildlife, flamingos, all in one picture, like all in one Apple screensaver. Like, that's what I was like, I'm walking in like an Apple screensaver, you know? And just such otherworldly vegetation and everything. And then you just kind of, what I loved about that experience is you feel so small in that expanse. You feel like you're just a nobody, and I loved that feeling. You know, it was cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned the peaks. What about any valley moments while you've been at Anderson?
You know, actually, that first year was really tough for me because I remember you're like maybe 2 or 3 classes in, and it's so unrelated from my job, like my day-to-day as a hospitalist. And like, I'm just like, why am I learning economics? And why am I doing all this stuff, you know, accounting, like all these classes that are really, they require a lot of work. They kind of felt like almost like an organic chemistry, but I don't have the bandwidth mentally anymore, you know? So, and again, like some people are coming in really motivated and energized, and then you just, as much as you wish you could harness that energy, you're like, I can't. Like I am barely, I feel like I'm there, I'm doing the best I can. Which in a way was never an excuse I'd give myself. Like I would try to really do as best as I can, and like sometimes it would really flop. But either way, it's like, you know, you gave the effort and you put forward. And there were times when I was like, I'm just not able to. And then I remember it was like the end, I was approaching the end of that first year. I was super exhausted. I had signed up to do the Brazil exchange program with Inspire. And I remember emailing Lucy. I had just like a lot of things were going on. I was deciding if I wanted to join a private group, which would have been a big change for me because I was like, you know, from UCLA, from residency onwards and faculty. And it was like, it was like really breaking out of a comfort zone for me. I just bought a house, so like that caused a lot of stress. And I remember I like needed to get an emergent endoscopy because I was having really bad reflux or whatever. Turns out I was just crazy, you know? But it was like that week, and I remember emailing Lucy being like, I just don't think I want to do this Brazil exchange. And then she's like, it's a little late and we can't really refund you if you quit and all this stuff. And so I'm like, oh, fine, I'll go. And then that week, it was like an amazing experience. And I pinched myself being like, oh my God, I can't believe I had even that doubt for a second, because the professors were incredible. It was an opportunity to learn about AI in another country. And like, they had really taken off like with a lot of AI based initiatives, and they were teaching us real skills. I was like, oh wow, like this is not what I expected. I'm having like a great time learning. And then in the middle of the week, I got a call that I got the Wooden Award. So it was almost as though all of the doubts and frustrations and worries and second guessing about my career path and decision all got healed in that that 1 week. And it was hard because, like, you know, when you're older and you're trying to go back to school and stuff, you're really like, I need to get something out of this. And I kept thinking like that, not realizing like I have to put stuff into this as well. It's not going to be some like hand me things. But when an opportunity is there, like the one I had in Brazil, which was really cool, you know, and I got close to some of the professors and tried to connect them with some Anderson ones as well. Like, I mean, if I had canceled that, you know, I would have really regretted it. And I think it was a very humbling moment for me to be like, if there's a really great opportunity, you should absolutely stick with it and do it.
Wow, thank you. So as now we're about to graduate, 2 months from now.
Yeah.
Who do you aspire to be after Anderson? So what's the what now? Maybe a good, better, best of you in the next 5 to 10 years.
I think now I am starting to settle into what my life looks like as a physician. At first, I didn't really know, and I think I had all these like aspirations to do certain things, but I've started to recognize that just one part of who I am. I think the openness to entrepreneurship is something that this has given me confidence to do. So I am curious, like, will this soap brand become, kind of an entry point into other ways in which I can medically advise other companies, things like that. I'm also excited about real leadership opportunities. I think that the skills I've gained from being here have been tremendous. The network is really impressive, and I'd like to really put that to the test. So I'd like to see, like, if given the opportunity to make big decisions, be it for a medical company or for a hospital, that I'm granted that. I think that would be really exciting.
Awesome. And as we start to land the plane, let's do a lightning round. So, what is your favorite restaurant?
Oh my gosh, I wish you gave me some preparation.
Mhm.
My favorite restaurant is Laya. It is a Lebanese restaurant by Charvel Hayak, and it's in the Hollywood area.
What do you get there?
I like their kebab platter.
All right, good. All right, kebab platter. I'll get
Yeah.
that. Awesome. What's the last song stuck in your head,
Uh,
or your favorite song?
oh my gosh, I wish you just told me these things.
See, that's how you know this is parties.
Yeah. Oh my god, I hate to say it's Apple by Charlie XCX because I was just listening to that in the car.
Sweet. All right. What's your favorite Anderson memory?
My favorite Anderson memory. There was a night when Afshin had us over to his house to just hang out, and it was like after I think like we had just finished a lot of our like intense coursework, and it was just such a wonderfully pleasant experience because it was with a lot of like the friends that I've made in the program, and we all happened to be there, like Ashlyn and James and Rowan, and I thought that was something that was really unique because as you get older, I think it's really hard to make close, good friends, and I felt like I made really close, good friends in this program. Or like, even if I don't see them that often, it's an Instagram message here and there that's like a reminder that they're great. And when I do see them, it's always been such a great time. And I love that they're not in my industry because then I get this window into another world, So I think that's something that people underestimate. Like you can really make great friends like in this experience. And you never know, they really might be like the founder of some amazing coffee company or, really advocate for you if you need help in the future. And all it takes is those moments. I mean, one of my bigger regrets is because of being so busy, I feel like I didn't get a chance to really emphasize as many of the social activities. But when they did happen, I was really happy about them.
What's an Anderson must do that you didn't know back then, but now that has helped you be successful?
I think that the exchange programs and the immersions are incredible. I think that what people don't realize is the breadth of the network is so strong in those countries. And you meet some really impressive people, and you never know how much that is going to really change you and change your perspective on a nation and change your perspective on, like the world is a really turbulent place right now. What I loved is that it shows you that other societies exist and you can really learn a lot from them. And who knows, you may want to even live there, or collaborate with them. And I think what I liked about that experience, I've always been like a really global person. That's something that my parents have always inspired me to be. I think it forces you to do it. And it's really great because you take back so much more than just a course.
And how do you think about ROI right now?
Okay, so quantitatively, I can't quite comment because I haven't really explored because I would like to graduate and like see where that goes. Qualitatively, I think it's been huge. I am super honored to have gotten a lot of recognition while being here. I think that was something that I didn't expect between the Wooden and the Dean's Fellowship and things like that. That was really, it was almost like a way to show that my journey before coming here also mattered. Because I think a lot of people don't realize like it's your story that really is important. And then how are you going to add this chapter and make it really interesting? I also love this, like I mentioned, like the skills. This has taught me how to work with a lot of different types of people. This has taught me a lot about myself. Good things, bad things, things that are modifiable. And I think that that's been really the biggest benefit. So yeah, I would love to do this interview in a few years as well to tell you like where things are. But right now, I think that this is a tremendous opportunity. And for people who are looking for change, sometimes you have to buy that change. And I think that this is a structured way to do it. But it also requires a lot of buy-in. Things are not going to just happen for you. Like, you have to really step up. You know, I remember taking all of our meetings with Vicky for BCC while I was on call, you know, and like, they just got used to it. And like, at some point they would just see me in a call room all the time, or like walking in the hallway of a hospital or whatever. But it was so important, because if I missed those meetings, I wouldn't have gotten to learn, like, you know, from an industry head and a lead. And like, she's really inspiring, you know? And like, at a certain point it became, I don't want to disappoint Vicky. I don't really care about the BCC part. I just don't want to disappoint this person, because she clearly cares, you know?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that knowledge. All right, so let's get to the bear hug.
Oh, okay.
All right, so the bear hug is a virtual hug that you would give someone, a friend, or many people, faculty who have helped you get through the last 3 years at Anderson.
Okay, well, I love my nephew very much, so I'm going to say one bear hug goes to my nephew,
Oh.
Zubin. He is everything to me.
How old is Subin?
He is turning 4 soon.
Okay.
Yes. And so, you know, he gave me a lot of emotional support, even though he didn't know it. And then I would actually also extend a bear hug to Naveen Alfara, who is the Vice Chair of Inpatient Services at Ronald Reagan. She's a very inspiring mentor that I've had since residency. And she's the one who pushed me to do this program, and she's the one who supported my application for the Wooden. And she herself is quite the pioneer in our field. And I think she's someone that also deserves a hug.
Awesome, thank you. Ishan Asokan, sharing success, thinking fearlessly, driving change. Thank you on behalf of Anderson for doing this for us. And thank you on behalf of me for spending time with me. I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you for remembering our first interaction.
Yes, yes. Oh, I know. I won't forget it.
I will not forget this moment.
Yeah, you better not. When I will not forget this moment today.
Yeah, I will not forget. And then the best part is there's a video now proving that. So anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you.